So welcome to the Journalism and Design Online Harassment Consortium. I'm Rafaela Guns. I'm a senior here at the Journalism and Design program. So we're going to get into some heavy stuff. So I wanted to show a picture of a cute puppy just to lighten the mood because this is going to get pretty intense. So let's talk about what is online harassment. In my opinion, I don't think it's much different from offline harassment. It's someone invading your personal space, continuously trying to contact you, get your attention, especially after you've told them to stop. So I've taken this quote from the organization working to halt online abuse, which takes a dictionary definition of harassment and sort of adds what I just said, that this is continuing even after the harasser has been told to stop. And that is particularly what makes it harassment, is when it continues. It's not just like one rude comment, it's continuous. There are different types of online harassment, and cyberbullying.org gives a few definitions of different types of harassment. So general harassment, like I said, offensive, malicious messages to an individual or a group repeated multiple times. This can go into a more extreme territory of cyberstalking, which is when it can start to have real-life ramifications because these people might start to contact you on the phone or find your address or contact family members and sort of go out of the realm of the social media harassment or whatever it was individually and start to have real-life influence. Flaming is similar to harassment, but it's in a public setting where someone will be publicly embarrassed and others will join in to mock them. I think a good example of this would be YouTube comments, how if someone leaves a comment and then someone starts mocking them and others sort of join in on the fun. So it's sort of ganging up on an individual person and embarrassing them in a public forum. Exclusion is the act of intentionally singling out someone from a group and then sort of mocking them and talking about them behind the scenes where they can't see, but they obviously know what's going on because they know that they've been explicitly singled out. This can happen in support communities a lot, in Facebook groups, those type of things. Outing, which I consider similar to doxing, is when a person will share private information such as names of family members, your address, your phone number, credit card information, specifically for malicious intent. And as we will discuss later, there are ways that harassers can easily access this information, which a lot of it is public record, what your address is, what your phone number is, but there are websites that will sell public records for instant download for a little bit of money. So it can be really easy for harassers to get this personal information and share it publicly for a malicious intent. Masquerading is a situation where someone will make a fake account using your pictures and your name and pretend to be you and make inflammatory statements and comments as you, and they can even send malicious messages to the victim themselves for what seems like themselves and just sort of make their life a living hell by pretending to be them. So online harassment is pretty pervasive. Pew Research says that 73% of adult internet users have seen someone be harassed online, while 40% have experienced online harassment themselves. Since this is a journalism panel, I found this video, this program that project that The Guardian did recently of the dark side of The Guardian comments, where they reviewed their 70 million comments left on their site and found that the 10 most abused writers, 8 were women and 2 were black men. So this shows how online harassment can be particularly targeted towards marginalized groups such as women, such as queer individuals, such as people of color. And I'll show this sort of short video of 3 of the writers sharing their responses.
Nice smile, but no substitute for a brain. More often than not, it's just a bunch of dudes telling you to shut the fuck up. How do you respond to a comment saying you're stupid, right? Where's the debate in that?
Not every fucking thing has to do with race, Thrasher, and you're ruining the site with your racist bullshit. Well, if I had a dime for every time I heard that. I don't mind, people saying that they think I'm factually wrong or politically wrong, but it's really draining dealing with what I think of as abuse.
It would be good to have Nasreen make it entirely clear where she stands on ISIS. Well, if you'd read the piece, then you would have known. When people say I get very annoyed, I get very upset when I receive negative comments, I think it's the biggest compliment that you can get. It's very flattering because you think I have managed to amplify my voice into corners of society where they have not heard from people who look or sound like me or who are saying anything like I've been saying, and surely that means you're achieving something.
So I think The Guardian did a really good job. They put together visualizations of the statistics, and it's really cool. You can kind of just scroll through and see what type of comments in what sections to what authors we're getting the most blocked comments. The Guardian does do comment moderation, so they block things that are particularly targeted, racist, sexist, bigoted, in that type of way. And then they looked at these blocked comments and did statistics and put them in this really cool graphic. So I really enjoyed this piece from The Guardian about this. So according to Pew Research, social media is the most common scene for online harassment, though men also talk about receiving online harassment in gaming communities and comment threads. But those who experience most severe online harassment, such as cyberstalking and doxing, often report more serious emotional tolls. And young adults, and particularly young women, are the most prone to online harassment. As you could see here with their statistics, 65% of young internet users have been targeted at least somehow in some sort of form of online harassment, like was shown previously, the different types. And young women, 26% of young women have been stalked online, and 25% were the target of online sexual harassment. So as you can see here, this is a chart that Pew Research put out. As you could see, for sexual harassment, for stalking, for sustained harassment, so the most severe forms of online harassment are experienced by women, whereas men will be called offensive names or be embarrassed in a comment thread, but nothing as severe as what women experience. Online harassment can have dire consequences. According to this website, Cyberbully Hotline, they report that 20% of cyberbullied kids think about suicide and 1 in 10 attempt it, and there have been many stories in the news over recent years of young middle school, high school age kids committing suicide because of cyber harassment. In what is notoriously known as Gamergate, game developer Brianna Wu had to flee her home after receiving threats on Twitter that included her address and made her fear for her real-life personal safety. Writer Lindy West had someone masquerade as her deceased father on Twitter to harass her. And she actually wrote this really great piece for The Guardian about how she confronted him. And here's a picture of them. He actually did end up apologizing to her, which is not common for most of these harassers. This is a great piece written by her about how this man here used her dead father's identity to abuse her. So now I'm going to get into my story. So as I said before, my name's Rafaela Guns. I also go by Rafi. I'm a student here at the New School, majoring in journalism and minoring in gender studies. I'm particularly passionate about feminism, LGBTQ issues, and ending STI stigma. And these are topics that I write about frequently. I'm very active on social media because, in this day and age, as a writer, you kind of have to be. Whether you want to or not. I'm the creator and co-admin of a feminism group called Fantastic Feminism. I created it, but I have other admins that help me run it, and we will get to this problem later. Over the past winter break, I was the victim of online harassment twice. The first time I was harassed was in response to an article I wrote for Guerrilla Feminism, which exposed the misogyny within STI support communities. There was one group in particular where a lot of the women I interviewed mentioned that this was a place that they had been harassed by men in a place that they're looking for support. So I named this group. I felt it was ethically responsible to do so. But this group in particular was secret. And what I mean by secret is Facebook has different settings for groups. And if you have a secret group, you won't be able to find the group unless you're invited into it by someone already in it. So there's no way an outsider would be able to find this group. But despite that, a lot of people were concerned for their safety, said that I outed them, that they're afraid of trolls coming in and publishing their names and things like that, which, as I said, it's a secret group. I don't think it was very likely, but I received many messages telling me what a horrible person I was for writing this. I saw comments of them talking about wanting to contact my school, as well as find out my address, as well as the address of another woman who I interviewed in the article. The second time I was targeted was much more extreme. As mentioned, I am the creator of and co-admin of a group on Facebook. The group is, it has a few hundred members, but it's not super huge. But we were targeted by another group, which had 5,000 members, called Anti-Social Justice Warriors. And they were lurking in the group and ended up targeting me personally. So what happened was I decided to contact the employer of one of my harassers. He messaged me personally to tell me cyberbullying wasn't real. And when I looked at his page, which was public, he listed a grade school as his employer, and he was a substitute teacher there. So I decided that, considering how I just mentioned that young kids often try to kill themselves because of this, that it was responsible that his school knew how he was representing himself and them online. And I sent them the screenshot and explained the situation, and apparently he ended up getting fired. So when word of this got back to the Anti-Social Justice Warrior group, the harassment got a lot worse. I'd like to add a trigger warning right now because I'm going to be showing some screenshots of the messages I received, which include a lot of misogynistic targeted language. So I'm a fucking loser, piece of trash, herpes-infected bitch. This guy commented this on all of my articles on my journalism page. I got these messages calling me a bigot and whiny or overprivileged hater. I'm ignorant, sexist. I'm a woman with emotional problems. This guy's kind of hitting on me, calling me pretty, but then saying I'm a terrible person, but hitting on me. So that was weird. Some more. Evil psychopathic pile of human garbage. This woman tries to blackmail me with saying, oh, we know that you have herpes. Yeah, I write about it on the internet, so you're not gonna blackmail me with something I already put out there. So sometimes I fed the trolls. I don't really abide by the idea that you can't feed the trolls, and by that I mean respond to your harassers. I feel like whatever makes you feel better and is able to help you cope, you should do. So a lot of the time, sometimes I will respond if I had something to say and then block them. But for the most part, I did just ignore them, block them, report the messages, and Facebook never found these messages to be violating their community standards. Some of you might have heard of 4chan, which is a deep website, and it's an anonymous site, and 8chan is a similar site, and they tried to dox me there. Here's the post of me being doxed with links to all my social media. Then it died down for a bit, and then a few months later, I got an email from a guidance counselor at my school telling me that someone sent him an email saying that they were concerned that I might try to kill myself. And my mother got a similar email from an anonymous email address. So I don't know what that was about, but it seems like they were trying to, have me institutionalized or something. I don't really know what the goal of that was. And then one of them started a YouTube channel to make videos about me. They included my full name, pictures of me, and screenshots from my personal Facebook page without my consent. He also uploaded it to Dailymotion and Vimeo. I was able to get it successfully removed from all 3 of these sites because it included my personal information, but this didn't stop him because then he uploaded it again with my last name blurred out and then still continued to distribute the original via Mediafire, which is a file sharing site, and also Russian video streaming sites that would make it harder for me to report these videos on because they're not in English. I reported this guy's Facebook page. Facebook didn't find it against his community standards. He thinks I'm trying to censor him when this wasn't about censorship. This was about him using my personal information without my consent. During this time, I filed 2 police reports as well as a report with the FCC, and nothing was done. Facebook refuses to delete anything like this from this guy who made YouTube videos about me. Then I wrote a personal essay about all this that was published to the feminist site Ravishly. And when word of this got back to the trolls, the cyberbullying started again with comments like these, such on my Facebook page, but also on Ravishly's site, because for some reason, as a feminist site, they don't do comment moderation. So I had people calling me a cunt on a feminist website, and it was there for days until the editor finally deleted them at my request and closed the comment section. This is not an issue of freedom of speech or censorship. This is an issue of harassment. And social media sites such as Facebook, such as Twitter, are failing to protect those most vulnerable to this, such as women, LGBTQ individuals, and people of color. So I would like to introduce our panel. We have Amanda Alcantara, and she could talk a little bit about herself.
Yeah, sure. So it's Alcantara.
Alcantara, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I run personal blogs called Radical Latina, where I basically write about sort of like personal issues from a very political social justice perspective, me as a woman of color. And then I also run an online magazine called La Galeria Magazine, which is for Dominicans who live outside of the Dominican Republic, mainly in New York because it's where I'm stationed, so of course most of my people are going to be here. Should I then go into more like the online harassment?
You can just talk a little bit about like what it means to you, and then we can go into that in a few.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I have experienced some harassment through Radical Latina because of the writing that I do there. But the harassment got really bad, and then I made a video last year of a protest in Manhattan in front of the Dominican consulate, basically denouncing a law meant to denationalize hundreds of thousands of Dominican Haitian descent. So basically, this law was passed in the Dominican Republic saying that if you didn't have your documents, you were going to be deported. And the issue with that is that there really was no infrastructure for people to get documentation. So that's sort of like just touching on the issue that I was writing about. So then I wrote about this, I wrote several articles about this issue, and I was already getting harassed for the articles that I wrote. But it got really bad when I made this video. And I made 2 videos, and one of them went, not like viral, like 1 million views, but it had like 200,000, 300,000 views on Facebook and YouTube combined, which is a lot if you're thinking of like the Dominican community. Like it was for a very targeted community, right? And just this crazy amount of online harassment started. First it started with like comments on the video of people basically saying very racist things against Haitians. People started saying that I was just doing this to get attention because it was like a hot topic and it was an issue that everyone was talking about, even though I've been writing about the issue for a while back. It's been tough, and then also for La Galeria Magazine, we've experienced the same kind of harassment, and I think it's actually been because it's women writing about sort of these topics, and it's women writing about feminism, but also other issues that really challenge just capitalism, patriarchy, heteronormativity, and that challenge sort of society as we know it today, and that really questions Dominican culture specifically. Yes, I'll say that.
Thank you. And we also have Annemarie Dooling, so you can talk a little bit about your experience.
So I have been, I'm sort of on the other side of this where it's my job to protect writers. So I will do a lot of work in moderating comments. I managed the community team at the Huffington Post for 3 years where we had over 2 million comments and over 40 verticals and hundreds of writers for me to protect on a daily basis who wrote about everything from LGBT issues to misogyny to different areas in health and science, which are always fun to moderate. And then, of course, I worked at Salon.com, where we managed to ban, I think, 3,000 trolls in the first month, just by changing different systems and platforms that we used. And then basically from there, I have always worked in news media journalism in that sphere, figuring out different systems to protect people, and sort of working in the fine line between what is free speech and what is journalism and what are we actually getting out of comment sections in social media.
Okay, great. So from now we can start the panel, I guess. Amanda submitted some screenshots which she can talk about. I guess, yeah. Do you want to switch spaces because it's plugged in? So it's just on the next slide.
Yeah, so basically, these are just some examples of some of the online harassment that I got. A lot of it came via personal messages. The first one is in Spanish. Can you actually see it? It doesn't matter. Basically, long story short, is a woman telling me, Radical Latina, you don't know anything about Dominican history, and then she goes on to use very ableist language saying that I'm a mental midget, and that I resent my national identity, and that I feel almost like bad for myself. So then just to like, feel like I need to put things into context a little bit. So in the Dominican Republic, the way that anti-blackness, because anti-blackness we know is like a global thing, but the way that it plays out there is that people are black, like I am, an Afro-Latina, but via history, or like throughout history, there's been a sort of denial of blackness, right? So people don't want to associate with like, the African slaves that were brought in. Instead, it's more like an association with Hispanidad, so being like Hispanic in Spain. And then our neighbors are Haiti, which is the place of like the first and only, I think, successful slave rebellion that managed to actually gain independence from France, right? And so there's just a lot of basically tensions between the two. And then there's also tensions with Dominicans trying to reclaim blackness and trying to reclaim their blackness. So even if we don't bring Haiti to the picture, just me saying I'm Afro-Latina can like trigger a bunch of comments. So I was interviewed for Cosmopolitan magazine, and if you look at the article, if you look at the interview, it was very like, it's Cosmopolitan, they're not going to publish anything crazy. They're not going to publish anything that's going to challenge the mainstream media, I would argue. But they, I basically said my reasons for like why I got with this team and we started the magazine, and I said one line about like, oh yeah, we're 3 Afro-Latina feminists writing this magazine. And just that triggered like a bunch of comments from people saying, oh, I don't understand what this whole Afro-Dominican thing is, We're just like a mix of all these races, you don't have to identify with blackness, and basically just the whole color blindness myth, right? So then, this is one comment, and then 2 of these are sort of examples of sort of very just scary comments that me and a lot of people dealing with this issue get, that are basically very threatening, right? So this one says, we're going to be calm in our enemy's funeral, right? And then this woman, who was actually a student at Penn State, and I actually considered calling them as well, but I couldn't find more information because this is not her first name, and Loca means crazy, so it's not, so I couldn't find anything else. She basically said at the end, I'll be honest, if I see you, I'm going to punch the living crap out of you. I swear to God, I don't care if you take that as trolling or a threat. So this basically, can I actually pull up the article?
Yeah, it should be on a tab there.
Alright, so this basically is because of an article that I wrote about the issue. So I think I have to zoom out. Can I be timed? Because I might go over time. I might take over.
It's okay.
So I wrote an article basically about this issue because I'm not the only one who's experiencing it, and it's basically about how international Dominican silence Haitian solidarity. I mean, that's pretty much it, you know. So on my Facebook page, the public Facebook page that I have for Radical Latina, where I posted the video, I was getting constant comments every day, sort of like harassing me. And I remember there was one day in particular where it all kind of like started, like it really just comes out of nowhere, right? I'm sure you've experienced that as well. And then this one guy commented and said, you know, because I started blocking people and I started just hiding these messages. And this one guy said, oh, you're going to have to block an army because we posted your information in another website. So people are going to start coming and you're going to have to block a bunch of people. And as you can see, when I wrote this article, I was in a lot of, it was like kind of months after it happened. So this happened in the summer and I wrote this article and put this piece together where I also interviewed other people, which I'll tell you about, in November. But I still blocked the names out of fear of triggering them, right? So I've also dealt with like in-person sexual harassers who have like, you know, tried to, you know, who like showed up at my house and stuff. And like I know that sometimes like, and it's interesting because the online harassment felt very similar where sometimes they're really just waiting for you to trigger them, for them to act on something. At least that's the experience that I've had and that I just, so even for this article, like I blocked the name and a lot of people criticize me and I'm like, yeah, you're criticizing me, but that's because you don't know the shit that these people put me through. Like I'm not gonna put their name in an article and then have them say that I like doxed them or whatever, right? Anyway, and other people who do put the name out there, I think that's like very brave. And obviously, like you said, right, it's really up to each person how they're gonna deal with it and how they're gonna feel safe. And I can't wait to hear about your tips. All right, so then, so then this is like a picture that I had up where I have a t-shirt of the Haitian flag. And I took it down because I was scared that they were going to start using that. And I already did hear, because these are actual real people, right? So something that I all right, let me go back and then I'll get there. So other people who were experiencing this kind of harassment were reporters, right? So I interviewed Roque Planas, who is not, he's Latino, but he's not of Dominican descent, who actually went to the Dominican Republic to write about this issue. And he started getting sort of a lot of trolls, not like the kind of harassment, very personalized harassment that I was getting, but he definitely was also being trolled online a lot. People were tweeting at him, and all of his like Huffington Post comment section was just like, with people sort of going nuts, writing against the facts that he was writing about this issue. And I had a conversation with him where I interviewed him, and he said that basically he always tried to engage, but at some point he actually did have to start blocking people. And then he actually told me that he didn't think that it was a manufactured campaign, or that he wouldn't go as far as to say that, but I actually disagree with him. I think that it's very much a campaign, especially because, I ended up finding like the two websites where they posted my video, and it turns out that the comments under the video saying, oh, I went on her website and blocked her, those names didn't actually match the name of the people commenting on Radical Latina. So that just told me that these people were actually creating different sort of names and whatnot to comment. And it made sense because not everyone is going to have like a picture of the Dominican flag, or like it's going to have like that kind of Facebook name. I mean, I assume a lot of people do, but I don't think that many people at the same time are going to like just have like similar name and whatnot. So to me, it definitely just seemed like it was like a very specific group of people with a lot of identities, sort of just coming at you with the same exact talking points, sometimes copying and pasting the comments. And then someone else who experienced a lot of trolling was Elaine Rodriguez. So Elaine, she did an art exhibit in the Heights with art from Dominican and Haitian artists. And as part of, like her spreading the information, she put an article out, or they published an article about the exhibit on DNAinfo.com, and it got so many views that then people started coming after her. They were saying kind of like the same things that they were saying about me, and I think that this is where it becomes gender, right? Where the attacks become very like targeted to women, that it's all because you want to get attention, which is like a stereotype, right, against women. And they started this campaign. These are some of the comments that people wrote. Some of them say death to all traitors. Some of them are blaming like NGOs, saying that she's backed by the government, and a lot of that, not the government, like NGOs. And someone actually did put out a statement against the exhibit. A political party in the Dominican Republic, right? A small political party put out a statement against the exhibit, and people did show up in person. And that's something that we have been getting. People show up in person, and they actually do protest at the events in person, which is very scary. And right now I'm sort of working with other, and it's mostly women who are doing this organizing. So I'm working with other women to put together a team and like to do some training among ourselves for tips for protecting yourself online, but also in person, right? Like what happens when these people come to our events and try to instigate. Yeah, and I mean, some of the other things that I wanted to touch on were, it does seem like, it's orchestrated campaigns. Some common themes were death to the traitors, calling people anti-Dominican, blatant racism, and then basically just very sexist and sexist comments, right? So I kind of wanted to focus on this specifically because I think it's something that has come up, especially with women on Twitter, where this conversation has come up about emotional labor and what does it mean for us to sort of do this work for our community and then have to deal with the fact that even like the men of color in our community are sort of standing against us. And not just men of color, also other women of color who I argue are basically like vessels still holding like patriarchal values, right? So to me, the fact that these comments are very like militant and very nationalist, to me that is still tied to patriarchy in a way. What else did I mention?
If you want to talk about, you were talking a little bit about campaigns, and there's the other slide with
Yeah, there is the other side.
Emma Solkowitz.
Yeah, so then this is an example of how it's not just, how do I make this?
Present on the top right corner.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so then this is an example to kind of show that, for almost like, it seems like not just like the campaign that I'm working on, well not campaign, not just like the issue that I'm working on, but for many issues, it really does seem like these are just, campaigns directed at feminists, right? So then this is an example of sort of like the same tweet, not even retweeted, but like copy and pasted by all these random people. And this is longer, I just,
Yeah.
a screenshot can only fit that many. And Emma Solkowitz?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's
The woman at Columbia.
yeah, sexual consent, I guess.
Yeah, she was raped, and Columbia didn't do anything. So she, as protest, carried around her mattress in a project called Carry This Weight, and she carried around her mattress throughout the rest of the semester on stage to her graduation
Okay.
to protest that Columbia didn't do anything, didn't expel her rapist, and he was still allowed to graduate with her. So clearly, people just are saying the same things, and it kind of ties into what you were saying before about people will make fake accounts, and this is where like blocking doesn't really do anything, because you can block someone and then they'll make a new account, and there's no really ramifications for having multiple accounts.